Ambassador Sarah Chen's footsteps echoed through the crystalline antechamber of the Galactic Council's headquarters on Alpha Centauri Prime. The walls, composed of living crystal that responded to emotional resonance, rippled with subtle patterns of anxiety. Not from her, but from the council members waiting within. Her small delegation of 5 humans walked with measured steps, their faces carefully neutral despite the magnitude of the moment. The massive doors, each carved from a single piece of transparent aluminum, parted silently. Inside, 300 species represented by over 1,000 delegates filled the amphitheater-like chamber. Some floated in containment fields of specialized atmospheres, others towered 3 stories high, while a few existed as pure energy contained within specialized matrices. All of them, every single representative of the galaxy's most powerful alliance, focused their attention on the small group of bipedal primates entering their chamber. High Ambassador Kazarn's tentacles shifted color from diplomatic blue to a subtle shade of green. Anxiety, for those who knew how to read Slaxian emotional displays. His voice, translated simultaneously into all council languages, filled the chamber. The council recognizes Earth's delegation for their petition review. Sarah stepped forward, her dark blue diplomatic uniform a stark contrast against the crystalline white of the chamber floor. Behind her, holographic displays materialized, showing Earth's achievements over the past century. First contact had occurred only 80 years ago, when a Rigelian survey ship detected their primitive radio signals. The displays showed humanity's exponential growth since then. Distinguished members of the Council, Sarah began, her voice steady. We stand before you having met or exceeded every qualification for membership. In 80 years, we've achieved what many species took centuries to accomplish. We've unified our planet, eliminated scarcity through matter replication technology, developed faster-than-light travel independently, and established peaceful colonies throughout our solar system. The displays shifted, showing Earth's transformed solar system. Mercury's resources had been partially harvested to build massive orbital habitats. Mars sported its first atmospheric processing plants. Europa's subsurface oceans hosted research stations studying indigenous life. Each achievement had been carefully documented and verified by council observers. Kazarn's tentacles rippled again. We have reviewed your petition extensively, Ambassador Chen. Your achievements are remarkable, perhaps too remarkable. The Council has spent the last 3 hours discussing your species' advancement rate. It is unprecedented. Sarah noticed the subtle shift in the chamber's atmosphere. Several delegates moved their environmental fields back slightly, a nearly universal sign of discomfort among spacefaring races. She had expected this reaction, had prepared for it. But what came next surprised even her. Humanity advances too rapidly, Kazarn continued, his translator struggling to convey the complex harmonics of concern in his native speech. Your species mastered antimatter containment in less than a decade after discovering its principles. You developed quantum tunneling technology while still deploying your first interplanetary colonies. The speed of your technological progression is, frankly, disturbing. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of translated agreements. Sarah stood perfectly still as the council listed their fears, disguised as concerns. Humanity was too unpredictable. Their advancement rate was destabilizing to galactic economics. Their willingness to pursue dangerous technologies showed a lack of proper caution. When the noise subsided, Kazarn delivered the verdict. The Council has decided that humanity cannot be trusted with full access to Council resources at this time. Your petition for membership is denied. A probationary period of no less than 500 standard years is recommended before reapplication. Sarah had known this was coming. Intelligence reports had warned of the Council's fear of humanity's rapid advancement. What the Council didn't realize was that this rejection had already been accounted for in humanity's plans. She simply nodded, turned, and led her delegation out of the chamber. In the antechamber, her deputy Amanda Patel whispered, "They actually did it. They actually rejected us." Sarah's lips curved in a slight smile. Of course they did. Fear makes for poor decision-making. She tapped her neural implant, sending a single encrypted message back to Earth. Proceed with Phase 2. The crystalline walls rippled one last time as they departed, reflecting not their disappointment, but their determination. The Council had just made the biggest diplomatic mistake in its 10,000-year history. They just didn't know it yet. Captain Zextra of the Fraxian mining vessel, Resource Seeker, double-checked his sensor readings, mandibles clicking in disbelief. Where Mercury should have been, a cloud of organized activity sprawled across its former orbit. His ship's quantum imaging system struggled to process the scale of what he was witnessing. Contact Council Emergency Channel. He chittered to his communication officer. Priority 1. Within hours, the Council's Rapid Response Observation Fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system. Led by Senior Observer Ixel, the fleet of stealth ships activated their most sophisticated cloaking technology, only to receive an automated message from Earth Traffic Control, marking their exact positions and assigning them observation corridors. They knew we were coming. Ixel's secondary brain pulsed with confusion. And they don't care. The observers watched in stunned silence as automated construction units systematically dismantled what remained of Mercury. Massive solar collectors, each larger than Earth's largest cities, unfurled in precise geometric patterns. Manufacturing stations converted raw materials into new construction units, which in turn built more stations in an exponential growth curve that defied conventional economic models. How many humans are operating this project? One of Ixel's analysts asked. According to these readings, another responded, none. It's all automated, self-replicating machinery coordinated by quantum AI systems we can barely detect, let alone understand. But Mercury was just the beginning. As the Council observation fleet spread through the system, they encountered even more impossible developments. Mars now hosted vast atmospheric processors that dumped oxygen and nitrogen into the thin atmosphere at rates that should have been technically impossible. Orbital mirrors focused sunlight onto the polar ice caps, creating the first Martian seas in billions of years. The real shock came at Europa. Through quantum-tunneled viewports, the observers watched massive cities being constructed beneath the ice, architected to house millions, but currently standing empty. Automated systems built entire civilizations in anticipation of inhabitants who hadn't even arrived. This is worse than we feared, Ixel transmitted to the Council. They're not just advancing. They're industrializing their entire solar system without regard for traditional development phases. Back on Earth, Sarah Chen sat in her office in Singapore, reviewing the observers' transmitted reports that Earth's quantum intelligence networks easily intercepted. A holographic representation of Sol Systems transformation floated above her desk, each point of activity marked in real time. They still don't understand, she mused to Amanda Patel, who stood watching the display. They think we're showing off. Amanda nodded, gesturing at a cluster of activity near Venus. The Council's mathematical models suggest it should take at least 50 years to establish the orbital shade arrays. We'll have them completed in 8 months. And the Mars project. 3 years until first stage habitability. The automated systems are evolving their own efficiency improvements, faster than we can document them. Amanda paused, studying a new alert. The Council observers are particularly disturbed by the empty cities on Europa. Sarah smiled. Of course they are. They believe in linear progression. Establish a colony, grow it slowly, build as needed. They can't grasp the concept of having infrastructure ready before it's required. Speaking of which, Amanda brought up a new hologram, showing a massive construction project in Earth orbit. The first wave of ships is ahead of schedule. Quantum engines are tested and ready. The AI systems have already plotted optimal expansion vectors that avoid all Council space. Sarah stood, walking to her window overlooking the Singapore arcology. Below, millions of humans went about their lives, most barely aware of the scale of transformation happening above their heads. The Council had feared humanity's potential for rapid advancement. In doing so, They had removed the only constraints that might have slowed humanity down. "Send the approval for Phase 3, Sarah ordered. "It's time to show the galaxy what humanity can really do when we stop waiting for permission." In the darkness of space, thousands of ships began powering up their quantum drives, preparing to carry humanity's influence far beyond the boundaries of their solar system. The Council had rejected them, expecting submission. Instead, they would demonstrate exactly why that rejection had been the Council's greatest mistake. Council Senior Analyst Dr. Yerix-9 had monitored thousands of species expansion patterns over his 3-century career. None had prepared him for this. His neural clusters pulsed with anxiety as he watched the holographic display showing humanity's expansion vectors. "They're not following any known colonization patterns," he reported to the emergency session of the Council's Expansion Monitoring Committee. "No methodical progression from nearby stars. No establishment of supply lines. They're launching simultaneously in every direction." The display showed over 10,000 ships, each carrying automated terraforming systems, quantum-linked AI cores, and self-replicating manufacturing units. Traditional species sent colony ships loaded with hopeful settlers. Humanity sent factories that built factories. In the Tav Ceti system, Council observers watched in stunned silence as the first human ships arrived. Instead of the expected decades-long process of careful atmospheric modification, the ships deployed what the humans casually termed entropy inverters. Within weeks, toxic atmospheres began transforming into breathable air. Barren crusts rearranged at the molecular level into fertile soil. "Impossible," muttered Observer Ktal, watching through high-powered quantum scopes as an entire planet transformed before her eyes. "They're breaking at least 6 laws of thermodynamics." Her assistant, fresh from the academy, clicked his mandibles nervously. "Actually, they're not breaking the laws. They're just ignoring the parts that inconvenience them." Back in Council space, Dr. Yerix-9 received more disturbing reports. The human ships carried no crews. Each vessel was controlled by quantum AI systems that evolved and improved their terraforming techniques in real time. When Council ships demanded inspection rights at a newly transformed world in the Epsilon Eridani system, they found something even more unsettling. Fully built cities standing empty, waiting for inhabitants who hadn't even left Earth yet. "They're not colonizing," Dr. Yerix-9 realized with growing horror. "They're industrializing the galaxy itself." In her Singapore office, Sarah Chen reviewed the Council's panicked communications with satisfaction. "How many worlds are ready for habitation?" she asked her AI interface. 53 planets and 16 moons have achieved Phase 1 habitability," the AI responded. "Construction units have established basic infrastructure on 37 of them. The first wave of human settlers can begin transport within 3 months." Amanda Patel, now serving as Director of Extrasolar Operations, brought up a new holographic display. "The Council's trying to establish containment protocols. They're telling their member species to avoid all contact with our terraforming operations." Sarah's laugh held no humor. "How's that working out?" "Not well. 3 independent scientific vessels have already gone dark trying to study our entropy inverters, not because we stopped them." Amanda's smile matched Sarah's, "but because their own governments recalled them when they got too excited about our technology." The display shifted to show a newly transformed world around Tav Ceti, where toxic storms once raged. White clouds now drifted over blue oceans. Automated constructors had built sprawling cities along the coastlines. Power collection systems tapped into the planet's core, and orbital arrays maintained perfect climate control. "Time to completion for full colonization infrastructure?" Sarah asked. "At current rates, 8 months. But the AIs think they can optimize it down to 6. They're learning with each world they transform." Sarah stood and walked to her window, as she often did when contemplating humanity's progress. The Singapore arcology now stretched into the stratosphere, its upper levels disappearing into the clouds. Similar structures dotted Earth's skyline, each housing millions in perfect comfort, each producing more resources than it consumed. "Send the signal to begin Phase 4, she ordered. "It's time to let the smaller non-council species know they have options." In the void between stars, humanity's automated fleets continued their relentless expansion. They avoided council space not out of fear or respect, but because they had already calculated the inevitable outcome. The council's member species would come to them. In his observation post, Dr. Yerix9 penned what would become a famous line in his report to the council. "We rejected humanity because they advanced too quickly. In doing so, we removed the only force that might have slowed them down, the bureaucracy of our own organization." The first wave of human expansion wasn't just changing planets. It was changing the fundamental power structure of the galaxy itself. High Counselor Kazarn's tentacles had lost their diplomatic blue hue entirely, fading to an anxious gray as he watched the recording for the third time. The Rigelian ambassador, speaking from the newly terraformed Mars colony, was formally announcing their withdrawal from all Council technology sharing restrictions. The Rigelian Confederation can no longer accept artificial limitations on scientific progress, the ambassador declared, standing before a vast Martian ocean that shouldn't have been possible for at least another century. "Humanity has shown us there's another way." Behind Kazarn, the council chamber erupted in chaos. The Rigelians weren't just any member species. They were pioneers in biotechnology, holding patents on cellular regeneration processes that half the council species relied upon. Their defiance would spark a cascade. He wasn't wrong. On Mars, Sarah Chen conducted her third diplomatic tour of the week. The Centaurian delegation floated beside her in their containment fields, their crystalline forms refracting the light of the setting sun across the Valles Marineris Ocean, a body of water engineered into existence just months ago. "Your gravity manipulation technology," the Lid Centaurian chimed, its thoughts converting to standard galactic. The council classified it as too dangerous for general use. Sarah gestured to the massive gravity-controlled arrays visible on the horizon. Those arrays maintain 0.8 Earth standard gravity across the entire colony. They're controlled by our quantum AI systems with a safety record of 0 incidents in 3 years of operation. "Would you like to examine the technical specifications?" The Centaurians vibrated with excitement, their equivalent of an enthusiastic nod. "And in exchange, your quantum computing insights would be invaluable to our AI development programs. Equal exchange, open collaboration. That's the foundation of the Terra Cooperative." In orbit above them, a Proximan trade fleet was already docking with the Mars Space Elevator. Their ships carried advanced photonic processors that the Council had restricted as dual-use technology. They would leave with designs for entropy inverters that transformed dead worlds into gardens. The Council's response came swiftly. Any species sharing restricted technologies with non-Council humans will face immediate sanctions, Kazarn announced to the galaxy at large. The threat might have worked a year ago, but now, "Show them," Sarah instructed her AI interface. Across human-controlled space, over 100 worlds simultaneously activated their quantum communication arrays. The supposedly impossible technology created instant, unlimited communication and data transfer between all Terra Cooperative members. In her Singapore office, Amanda Patel watched the Council's frantic reactions with satisfaction. "They still don't understand what we've built, do they?" Sarah shook her head. "They think we're creating an empire. They don't realize we're making something far more powerful, an open market of ideas." The display showed more ships arriving every hour. The Arcturus Mining Consortium brought their vacuum energy expertise. The Sirius Collective offered their dark matter manipulation theories. Each species found the same welcome: respect, fair exchange, and explosive technological growth, unfettered by artificial restrictions. "Latest numbers?" Sarah asked. 37 species have formally requested cooperative membership, Amanda reported. 15 more are in secret negotiations. The Council's threatened embargo is actually driving more species to us, They're realizing they can't afford to fall behind. Sarah studied the latest reports from their quantum AI networks. The predicted technological acceleration curves were exceeding even their optimistic projections. Cross-species collaboration was producing innovations that neither humanity nor their partners could have achieved alone. The Council made one fundamental mistake, Sarah mused, watching a Centaurian ship testing the human gravity drive, while a human research team examined Centaurian crystal computing cores. They thought keeping species separate and controlling technology would maintain stability. They never considered that unrestricted cooperation might create something greater than control. As if to punctuate her words, a new alert flashed across her display. The Pleiades Federation, long considered one of the Council's most loyal members, had just announced their intention to explore alternative partnerships. The Council's grip on galactic civilization wasn't just slipping. It was becoming irrelevant. The Council's emergency session had been running for 72 hours straight when High Ambassador Kizarn made the announcement that would seal their fate. All trade routes to non-compliant systems will be blockaded. The human contagion must be contained. In that moment, Dr. Maria Wells and Dr. James Goldman exchanged knowing glances in their laboratory beneath the Martian surface. The Council's declaration had arrived precisely when their quantum probability models predicted. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Signal from Director Chen, the lab's AI announced. You are authorized to proceed with Project Bridgemaker. Above their facility, the Martian sunset painted the sky in shades of red and gold. Below, humanity's greatest secret hummed to life. The massive quantum arrays, hidden beneath kilometers of rock, began their precise manipulation of space-time itself. Targeting coordinates locked, Dr. Goldman announced, his fingers dancing across holographic controls. Proxima Centauri Hub is standing by. Dr. Wells took a deep breath. Initialize Wells-Goldman Bridge sequence. In space, Council border patrols watched with satisfaction as their blockade tightened around human-controlled systems. Their massive fleets created an impenetrable wall of ships, sensor arrays, and automated interceptors. Any conventional attempt to break through would be detected and stopped. They weren't prepared for what happened next. Captain Yix of the Council flagship, Orders Dawn, was the first to witness it. Space itself seemed to fold, creating what his sensors insisted was a controlled quantum tunnel connecting 2 points in spacetime. Before he could process what he was seeing, a massive colony ship emerged from the distortion, passing instantly from Earth to Proxima Centauri. A journey that should have taken months. Impossible, he whispered, all 4 of his hearts stopping momentarily. But it wasn't impossible. The humans had done it again. In her Singapore office, Sarah Chen watched through quantum-linked feeds as humanity revealed its masterpiece to the galaxy. Status of the bridge network, she asked. Amanda Patel's hologram appeared beside her desk, her expression triumphant. 7 primary nodes activated and stable. The Proxima Hub is already handling commercial traffic. Ta City reports their bridge will be online in 6 hours. The quantum feeds showed Council scientists frantically analyzing the technology that should not exist. Their most advanced theories had suggested stable wormholes were impossible. Yet humans, working with their cooperative partners, had not only made them possible, but had turned them into a commercial transportation network. How are the markets responding? Sarah asked, although she already knew the answer. Council shipping companies are watching their stock values collapse, Amanda reported with satisfaction. 3-month trade voyages just became instant jumps, but only for cooperative members. The Council's threatened embargo became meaningless the moment we activated the first bridge. Across Council space, the reaction was immediate and dramatic. Merchant guilds that had operated the same trade routes for millennia suddenly faced extinction. Their only options were to defy the Council's embargo or go bankrupt. In the Martian laboratory, Dr. Wells and Dr. Goldman monitored the growing bridge network. Each node represented a triumph of collaboration. Human quantum engineering combined with Centaurian crystal computing, powered by Proxima photonic processors, stabilized by Rigelian biotechnology. They thought they could contain us with ships and borders, Dr. Goldman mused, watching another bridge spring to life near Sirius. They never understood that humanity's greatest weapon isn't our technology. Dr. Wells nodded. It's our willingness to share it. The Council's emergency session dissolved into chaos as reports flooded in. Their own citizens were building bridge generators using plans that had been leaked across the quantum net. They couldn't stop the spread of the technology because humanity had done something unprecedented. They had released the complete specifications to the public domain. In Singapore, Sarah Chen permitted herself a small smile as she read the latest intelligence. The Council was about to make their final desperate move, exactly as predicted. They would launch their fleet, thinking they could still solve this with military might. They had no idea they were about to discover just how far humanity's technological revolution had really gone. The Arcturus sector's declaration of independence lasted exactly 6 words. We choose freedom. Try to stop us. Within minutes, 3,000 ships from the Arcturian Defense Fleet activated their newly installed bridge drives. Before the Council's local garrison could react, the entire fleet vanished through a shimming quantum tunnel, emerging instantly in Earth-controlled space. High Admiral Kazarn watched the tactical display with trembling tentacles as his worst nightmare unfolded. How long have they been planning this? His intelligence chief's response chilled him to his core. According to these files, they've been manufacturing bridge generators in secret for months. The humans gave them the plans for free. But Arcturus was just the beginning. In her office aboard Ganymede Station, Sarah Chen held a simultaneous conference with representatives from 12 former Council species. Her quantum-linked display showed each of them in perfect detail, from the crystalline Centaurians to the energy-based Pleiadians. The Council will respond with force, she warned them. Are you certain your people are prepared? The Pleiades representative, a swirling vortex of pure energy, pulsed with determination. We've lived as second-class citizens for 10,000 years. The Council restricted our development, claiming our energy-based nature made us potentially unstable. Yet humanity looked at our quantum manipulation abilities and saw partners, not threats. Others shared similar stories. The Orion Alliance had been denied advanced AI research. The Carina Collective's gravity manipulation studies were consistently suppressed. Each species had faced artificial limitations, all in the name of stability. The Council didn't maintain peace. The Arcturian admiral growled, his scaled face showing contempt. They enforced stagnation. On Earth, Amanda Patel monitored the cascading effect of these defections. 20 more systems have requested emergency bridge installation, she reported to Sarah. Our AI networks predict the Council will lose 30% of their territory within the week. Sarah studied the strategic projections. And their response. Exactly as expected. They're mobilizing their primary fleet, but they still don't understand what they're really facing. The Council's attempt to close their borders came too late. Humanity had done something unprecedented in galactic history. They'd open-sourced their technology. Bridge generator plans spread across quantum networks faster than they could be suppressed. Citizens of Council worlds were building their own evacuation routes. In the Arcturus sector, Council forces arrived to find empty cities and deactivated infrastructure. The population had evacuated so smoothly that food was still warm in some abandoned homes. When the Council ships tried to pursue through conventional space, they discovered another surprise. The humans had helped the Arcturians seed their entire sector with quantum probability mines. They can't stop an idea. Dr. Wells observed from her Mars laboratory, watching the exodus continue, especially when that idea is freedom. The Council's desperate attempts to maintain control only revealed the truth their citizens had begun to realize. Their authority had always been based on technological suppression and artificial limitations. Faced with humanity's open collaboration model, their power base simply evaporated. Sarah's quantum display lit up with another alert. The Orion Alliance had just declared their independence. Their ships were already vanishing through newly activated bridges, carrying entire populations to waiting cities in human space. Cities built months ago in anticipation of this exact moment. How many worlds are ready to receive refugees? She asked her AI interface. 86 planets and 32 moons have completed infrastructure. The AI responded. The automated construction systems are adapting in real time to accommodate different species' needs. No one will lack for shelter or resources. The Council's response grew increasingly desperate. They threatened, they pleaded, they tried to negotiate. But they couldn't fight the fundamental truth. Humanity had built something better than an empire. They'd created a future where advancement wasn't controlled by a select few, but shared by all who wished to participate. As the revolution spread, Council analysts finally understood their critical error. They had feared humanity would use their rapid advancement to dominate others. Instead, humans had used it to liberate the galaxy from domination itself. The Council's last desperate option was rapidly approaching: outright military action. But humanity and their allies were ready. After all, they hadn't just been building bridges. The Council's grand fleet emerged from hyperspace in waves, 10,000 ships strong. Their formation was perfect, their weapons primed, their crews resolved to restore the old order. High Admiral Kazarn stood on his flagship's command deck, watching Earth grow larger in his view screen. No defensive fleet, his tactical officer reported with confusion. No orbital weapons platforms. Their planetary shields aren't even raised. Kazarn's tentacles rippled with unease. In his 1,000 years of military service, he learned one absolute truth. When a superior opponent appears defenseless, you're missing something critical. He was right. In her lunar command center, Sarah Chen watched the Council fleet's approach with perfect calm. Around her, holographic displays showed every ship, every weapon, every energy signature in precise detail. Amanda Patel stood beside her, monitoring the quantum defense grid that the Council still hadn't detected. "They're entering the primary engagement zone," Amanda reported. "All probability matrices are aligned." Sarah nodded once. "Execute defense pattern Terra." Reality itself seemed to shudder. On the Council flagship, Kazarn watched in horror as half his fleet simply ceased to exist. There was no explosion, no debris. 5,000 ships encountered what humans called quantum probability mines and were transformed into quantum potential energy, their matter scattered across multiple dimensions. "Impossible," his science officer screamed. "The energy requirements alone would." The officer never finished his sentence. The remaining Council ships found themselves trapped in localized time dilation fields, another impossible technology that humanity had perfected with their Pleiadian allies. For the crews caught in these fields, time slowed to a near standstill. From the safety of their command center, Sarah and Amanda watched the battle unfold exactly as their quantum AI systems had predicted. "Status of civilian populations?" Sarah asked. "Safe," Amanda confirmed. "The moment the Council fleet appeared, we shifted all major population centers into quantum sanctuary states. Even if they somehow broke through, they couldn't harm our people." The Council's mighty armada, the greatest military force ever assembled in the galaxy's history, hung helpless in space. Their most advanced shields meant nothing against weapons that manipulated the fundamental forces of reality. Their fastest ships couldn't escape fields that controlled time itself. In the Lunar Command Center, Sarah opened a channel to Kazarn's flagship, one of the few vessels they'd left unaffected by the time dilation. "Admiral," she said softly, "would you like to discuss terms?" Kazarn's image appeared on her quantum display, his tentacles pale with shock. "What? What are you?" "We're human," Sarah replied simply. "We're what happens when you tell a species they're advancing too quickly, then leave them alone to develop without your restrictions. Every technology you're witnessing was theorized by your own scientists over the centuries, theories the Council suppressed as too dangerous to pursue." She gestured, and the time dilation fields began to dissolve. Council ships reappeared in normal spacetime, their crews experiencing only seconds while 3 years had passed for the rest of the galaxy. "Your choice is simple," Sarah continued. "Join us in building something new, or maintain your isolation and watch the galaxy move forward without you. Either way, the old council is finished." Xarn looked at his tactical display, at the readings that defied everything he believed possible. "The ships," he said quietly. "The ones that vanished. Their crews are alive and safe," Sarah assured him. "The quantum probability mines were calibrated to transport, not destroy. Your people have been enjoying our hospitality in refugee centers for the past 3 years. They've had time to see what we're building. Many have chosen to stay." The Admiral's color shifted to the deep blue of profound realization. In trying to prevent humanity's influence from spreading, the Council had created exactly the situation they'd feared most. But the reality was far stranger than their worst nightmares. Humanity had developed not to conquer, but to lift all species to new heights. "We surrender," Xarn said finally. "But I must know, did you plan this from the beginning? From the moment we rejected your membership?" Sarah's smile held centuries of human determination. "Admiral, that rejection was the best thing you could have done for us. You forced us to build something better than your council ever was." The war was over before it truly began. The revolution, however, was just getting started. 20 years to the day after humanity's rejection from the Galactic Council, Sarah Chen stood once again in the crystalline chamber. The room felt different now, smaller, perhaps, or simply less intimidating. The living crystal walls no longer rippled with anxiety, but pulsed with something closer to anticipation. Where once 300 species had looked down upon humanity with fear and suspicion, now thousands of representatives gathered as equals. The old hierarchical arrangement of seats had been replaced by a circular design that Tesla-Klein gravity generators allowed to expand or contract as needed, accommodating everything from energy beings to silicon-based intelligences. "The final dissolution protocols are ready," Amanda Patil announced, her quantum tablet displaying the last documents of the old order. Sarah nodded, watching the remaining council species take their places. They weren't here to beg or negotiate. Those days were long past. They had come to join something greater than the empire they tried so desperately to preserve. High Admiral Xarn, now serving as the transition coordinator for the former council worlds, approached the central platform. His tentacles shimmered with colors that the human quantum translators identified as complex emotions: regret, hope, and something like wonder. 20 years ago, he began, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber, "We rejected humanity because we feared their rate of advancement. We believed that controlling progress was the key to stability." He paused, his primary eyes focusing on Sarah. "We could not have been more wrong." The quantum displays activated, showing the transformation of the galaxy over the past 2 decades. Thousands of worlds terraformed, millions of citizens lifted from scarcity to abundance, scientific advances that had once been deemed impossible now commonplace. "The Terra Cooperative," Xarn continued, "has achieved more in 20 years than the Council managed in 10,000. Not through force, not through control, but through something we had forgotten was possible: true collaboration." The displays shifted to show the networks of Wells-Goldman bridges connecting the galaxy, the quantum AI systems that managed resource distribution, the terraforming fleets still transforming dead worlds into gardens. But more importantly, they showed people, countless species working together, sharing knowledge, building something greater than any single civilization could have achieved alone. Sarah stepped forward, taking her place at the platform. "The dissolution protocols aren't just an end," she said, her voice carrying the weight of 2 decades of vindication. "They're a beginning. The cooperative isn't an empire. It's a promise that every species has the right to advance, to grow, to reach their full potential." One by one, the former council species approached to add their signatures to the quantum document. Each signature triggered automatic updates across the galaxy, officially transferring their systems into the cooperative's open network. There are no second-class citizens here, Sarah continued. No restricted technologies, no artificial limitations. Every advance we make is shared. Every discovery builds on the last. We compete through innovation, not domination. The final signature was added. The Council, after 10,000 years, ceased to exist. But there was one last surprise. We have a gift for the former Council species, Sarah announced. She gestured, and new quantum displays appeared, showing technical specifications that made even the most seasoned scientists gasp. Everything. All of it. Every technology we've developed. Every discovery we've made. No restrictions, no limitations, no waiting period. Kazarn's tentacles shifted to pure white. Absolute shock in his species' color language. You're giving us everything. Just like that. Sarah smiled. That's what we've been trying to show you from the beginning. The only way to build a better future is to lift everyone up together. The chamber erupted in cheers, the sound rippling through the living crystal walls in waves of pure joy. Species that had once been bitter enemies were already forming research partnerships, planning joint ventures, sharing ideas that had been suppressed for millennia. In that moment, Sarah thought back to that first rejection, 20 years ago. They had called humanity unpredictable, dangerous, too quick to advance. They had been right about one thing: humanity was unpredictable. No one could have predicted that they would respond to rejection by building something greater than an empire. They had built a future where every species could reach for the stars together. The galaxy would never be the same. It would be better.